what I'm doing. Don't normally do these on camera, but I thought I'd do one like this, so I'm doing it live. I'll be reading from this book here. I'm already on chapter 22, so I've already read this much of it. It's all available on Patreon to listen to. Basically what I do is I read this old book, which is written kind of poorly and kind of old-timey. It's written in the 60s by someone who, it sounds like someone who'd never read a book in their life. But I don't know, maybe he just writes weird. But then I make bits up as well, chuck bits in, make it a bit more interesting. It's called The World's Strangest Crimes. And there's a free trial on my Patreon, so if you want to go and listen to the other 21 chapters, you can actually listen to one chapter on here already for free on YouTube, just to give you a good bit of a taster. But I'm gonna get going with it. I was gonna go live on TikTok, but I forgot. So here we go. Right, we're on chapter 22. This one's called Murder Without Motive. There's a picture of what I would say looks a bit like a rape van. It's got one of them panel vans with the thing on top, the rack on top, and it looks like curtains over the windows, so pretty odd. There's a dead person lying in what I think is a cot, like, you know, them foldable beds. She's lying face down, if that's important. She might be naked. Maybe, you can see her feet. She's definitely not got shoes or socks on, or a long sleeve shirt, maybe no top on, but he hasn't drawn the tits, unfortunately. So, murder without motive. At about 6 o'clock in the morning, oh, by the way, if you're listening to this on Patreon, I did do this on YouTube as well as a video, so I'll add the YouTube video to the Patreon as well, so you can have a see. So you see what it looks like when I read. There you are, hello. The audio might not link up though, I'm not sure with the mouth moving. Anyway, at about 6 o'clock in the morning on the 4th of August 1952, a motorcyclist driving along a winding road near the village of Leurs in the Provence region of southern France was waved down to a halt by a man standing at the side of the road. This was wild open country in a mountainous area, pockmarked with that's an offensive term now, isn't it? With jagged outcrops of granite and scarred by deep ravines. It was off the beaten track of tourists, though travellers would camp in the area from time to time. Now, by travellers, I imagine that means people who get about rather than the people. But I might be wrong, could be wrong. It's just so you build that mental image in it, do you know what I mean? I don't want you thinking it's, this is about a certain type of people. I don't think it is so far. At this particular moment, the place was desolate and deserted in the early morning sunshine, apart from the man at the side of the road, who was stocky and rugged in appearance and appeared to be a member of the local farming community. He was a youngish man, in his early 30s. I've only ever hitchhiked once, and I got knocked out by a push bike in the back of the camper van. It was like a caravanette camper van style thing. I was with two mates. Just sat at a desk, and then all of a sudden I got smacked over the head by a push bike. No one threw it at me, it just fell off of something. Just fucking hit me in the back of the head and smacked me head off the desk in front. The motorcyclist stopped the man in a sullen, disinterested fashion. Asked him, I don't know what that means, sullen, disinterested fashion, asked him if he would go to the police station at the small town of Fauquelquet, about 12 kilometres away, to report that there had been a murder near to a farm called La Grande Terre. Now, they already know it's bad there if it's called the Big Scare, don't you? La Grande Terre. Near Leurs. It all sounds made up, doesn't it, when you hear stuff from other countries. He would wait at the roadside until the police arrived. It was an odd early morning request, but the motorcyclist did as he was asked without putting too many questions to his rather bad-tempered informant. It's what you want, innit? He's been, fucking go to the police, someone's killed someone! Thomas fucking killed someone! Like, the guy's still raging because he's obviously done it. He's got all them emotions running through it. That's my guess. The guy who's asking for help killed the person, but we'll see where this goes. These are usually kind of easy to guess, most of the time. Within the hour, the police duly arrived to find the squat, peasant-like man patiently waiting for them. He introduced himself as Gustave Dominique, the 33-year-old son of Gaston Dominique, who owned the La Grande Terre farm nearby. So he's 33 years old, for all the conspiracy heads listening. That seems significant, doesn't it? It's the age of Jesus. 33 as well. 33 is always thrown around. Gustave related his story curtly. While asleep at the farm, he had been awakened during the night by the sound of gunfire. It had been fairly remote and meaningless, and he had done nothing about it. later, around 5:30, he had got up and walked over towards a railway cutting where there had been a landslide. Quite by chance, he'd come upon the brutally murdered body of a little girl. A little further on was a car, and close to the car, he'd also found the dead bodies of a bloke and a lady. The police took over, sceptical at first, but what Gustave said was true. Gustave led them away from the road in the direction of the nearby River Durance, which flowed through a narrow ravine. You never heard the word ravine, and he's used it twice in like 2 paragraphs. About halfway, they found the body of a young girl. She couldn't have been more than 11 years old, because that's a weird thing to know. 11's a weird age to guess. To look at, you've got to have seen a lot of dead little girls, haven't you, to be able to look at them and go, that one there, like rubbing your finger down it and going, like that, sucking the tip of your finger. Can't be more than 11. It's not a day over 11, this one. It's fucking, what a weird thing to say. Unless that's a normal way to describe a dead little girl, I don't know. And her head had been violently beaten and crushed. Not far away, on a level area of the ground, was a green Hillman estate car with what appeared to be a British reg, as in number plate. Alongside the car were 2 folding camp beds with travelling rugs, indicating that the occupants had evidently been camping for the night in the open air. So, I thought I'd completely misunderstood that then. I didn't know what a travelling rug was, it had lost me. I thought that was the bed, but we've already said bed. Under the one rug, the police discovered the dead body of a woman in her late 40s. She'd been shot 5 times. Some distance away, they came across the dead body of a man, aged about 60, who had been shot in the back. What a weirdly written sentence. It was quite obvious that the man, woman and child were a family, almost certainly British, and probably enjoying a camping holiday before violent death had overtaken them during a warm, starlit provincial night. What a fucking, an awful lot of commas there. He's found the comma button again. For those of you watching on YouTube, the guy that wrote this book fucking loves a comma, to the point where it destroys a sentence, just decimates the paragraph. Like there's got to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 commas in 3 sentences there. The police examined the bodies and the contents of the clothing and sifted the scene in minute detail. There was no apparent motive for the triple murder apart from a bookie slip that was found alongside 3 Argos pens. Money and travellers' cheques had not been touched, and no sign that articles in the pockets of the victims had been tampered with or even read. The car had not been interfered with or even opened. There was no obvious indication of sexual assault. See, that implies that there's an unobvious indication of sexual assault. The only missing articles, so far as could be ascertained, were watches. But here it was necessary to assume that a touring family would be unlikely not to have at least one wristwatch between them. What a different time. This was a hypothetical point, and would a murderer simply take a watch and not money? Just a weird question. During the course of the long day, the police. This is very weird because I've got a camera watching me read this, and this makes it strange to me that you're watching for some reason. Very conscious that I'm being watched read. During the course of the long day, the police, suitably reinforced, examined every inch of the scene of the crime and the local environment. In due course, they found the murder weapon. It was an automatic carbine, a relic of the Second World War, and a type that had been issued to the US Army and had also been used by the French resistance. The carbine was discovered at the bottom of the Durance River in the ravine. At the time of the year, it was little more than a shallow stream, so it wasn't a local person then, because you would know that's not shallow. Unless they look at it going, fucking hell, that must be really deep because it looks so thin. Look how far down this ravine is. Just makes, because I imagine a shallow stream just makes a ravine look deeper, doesn't it? You think, fucking hell, that water's miles away. At the time of the year, it was little more than a shallow stream, as I've just fucking said, but there were occasional deep pools. The weapon was recovered from one of the deepest of the pools, so maybe they did have local knowledge, and this suggested it had been thrown there by someone with detailed local knowledge, fucking called it, and not just carelessly cast into the ravine by a stranger. Therefore, the obvious focus of police suspicion was on the Domininki family itself and the Legrand Terra farm nearby. The Dominicki family, as subsequent investigation revealed, proved to be more of a tribe or perhaps a clan. Old Gaston Dominicki, aged 76, had 9 grown-up children and 16 grandchildren, 5 of whom he frequently had sex with, but they did not all live at the farm. The family was an independent peasant stock, inward turned psychologically and very bloody-minded. During the German occupation, they were reputed to have been stubbornly active in the resistance, and the Macock, I don't know what Macquis is French. It's got a capital M, it's got to be some form of militia because of the sentence, the resistance and the Maquis. They tended to be uncommunicative and very much united amongst themselves against the outside world, in a manner characteristic of the Southern Latins. The police quickly realised that the Dominicis, as witnesses, would be obstructive rather than cooperative, even though there was no evidence to show that any of them was involved in the triple murder. The investigation was taken over by the cousin Miserere, Edmund Seville, an experienced and thorough officer of the Marseille Surete. It soon became apparent to him that the Dominicis were behaving in a taciturn and secretive fashion, which, even allowing for their natural reticence, fucking many words, I don't know what taciturn is, or reticence, can't even guess contextually, I hope you know, suggested that they knew far more than they were prepared to divulge. Meanwhile, there's no mention of them being inbred out though. You'd think a family like that might be inbred. Meanwhile, the bodies of the murdered family were removed and identified. There was Sir John Drummond, his wife, Lady Drummond, and his daughter, Elizabeth, presumably Drummond. It was confirmed they'd been on holiday in France as the guests of Professor Guy Marianne and his wife, who doesn't get named, and rented a villa in Villefranche for the month of August. For the month of August, he's getting his word counting. Let's just have a little skim forward. This must be a short one. It's not a short one. It's actually a very long one. Fucking hell. Like 10 pages. Sir John Drummond was a biochemist who had received his knighthood during the war for his advisory services to the then Ministry of Food. See, look at that fucking GMOs, mate. His first childless marriage had been dissolved. I like the idea that means his wife, and he did it through a biochemical way. But what a word to use, his marriage was dissolved by a biochemist. Just like, get her in the bath, get her in that fucking tub. And later he married his secretary, who had become Lady Drummond. Elizabeth was their daughter. What a weird way to explain that previous paragraph, just writing it twice. Guy Marianne, their host, was a professor of medical chemistry at the University of Edinburgh and a close colleague of Drummond. Seville's inquiries showed that the first stage of the Drummond's holiday had passed quietly and uneventfully at the villa. Then the family had decided to visit Digny, some 70 miles away in the mountains, where a local festival involving a mock bullfight was about to take place. A mock bullfight. It's got to be a real bull, and it's not going to be some lad dressed as a bull, surely. What would a mock bullfight be? Maybe they don't kill the bull? Dunno. Never knew it was a French thing anyway. You learn loads reading this. They set off in their estate car taking camping gear with them, as it was to be a leisurely trip involving 1 or 2 overnight stops. Although the distance was not great, the road was twisting and difficult, winding through a desolate mountainous region inhabited mainly by dour and clannish peasant families working the land for a meagre living, and a family of clan-like militants who seemed to want nothing but to kill people and dump guns in their river. Speed of travel was not easy to attain, and in fact, night overtook them before they reached their destination. Being self-contained, they decided to camp until morning, but for them, morning never came. Looks drying out like a cunt, yeah. Been stuffing my face with rich teas and trying to read out loud. Where was I even up to? There. There were plenty of investigations, but no leads. As a result, a great deal of speculation arose in general gossip in the press. They fucking did it themselves. Yeah. I heard that I heard he was trying to orchestrate the rape. Hinted at political. The case was widely reported. Cloak and dagger guesswork hinted at political and even British intelligence involvement.
It was rumoured that Drummond had been killed because of wartime activity in the area. That he was to do with food, making food then that killed the French, or food that killed the Germans. It doesn't make sense. I've not missed anything. No. The murders were some kind of obscure reprisal. In support of these rather wild assertions, it was learnt that French and American intelligence were taking an active interest in the police investigation, and public interest increased to a new pitch of intensity when it was discovered that Sir John Drummond had, during his holiday, been making his own private inquiries locally about a certain British officer who had been parachuted into the area during the war with money for the resistance leaders. What a fucking long sentence. Not a comma in the thing. This is what I mean, the guy can't fucking write. That's... How long was that sentence? One comma. 1, 2, 3... No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines, not a comma in it. Yet that paragraph before was 2 sentences, and one sentence had about 13. The officer was found dead and the money was never received. It seemed possible, therefore, that the killing of the Drummond family was an assassination rather than a murder, but the theory weren't really supported by hard facts. There was the curious incident of a diary found in Nottingham which recorded that Drummond had in fact been in Leurs in 1947. The diary belonged to a man who had himself been murdered in the Alpes Maritimes of southern France, for a reason never properly explained. The diary was destroyed, apparently by the police at the request of Drummond's relatives. All in all, a sinister atmosphere of intrigue began to condense justifiably around the Drummond case. It possessed the hallmarks of Secret Service machinations, with the truth hinted at but never truly revealed. The French newspapers openly anticipated sensational disclosures of a political or partisan nature, but unfortunately it was all written in French, and no one in England could understand what was being said or suggested, with a point of origin in wartime Maquis activities, and perhaps connected with the spate of, quote, liquidations, unquote, which had followed the liberation of France. Whatever may have been the truth of the matter, and despite imaginative rumour and speculation, nothing sensational emerged from what had been regarded as a deliberate conspiracy of silence. If the local police of Leurs knew the identity of the killer, they sure kept it quiet, mainly saying, does he have a moustache? Did he wear glasses? Has he got a red sweatshirt on? Is it a man? Is it a woman? And they were keeping it to themselves. And the Dominici family in particular remained arrogantly and even defiantly uncommunicative. Commissaire Sebille, patiently pursuing his that's a hard sentence. Commissaire Sebille, patiently pursuing his methodical investigation but getting nowhere, but convinced in his own mind that the Dominicis were the key to the solution of the enigma, decided to apply the full treatment of continuous interrogation to the limits permitted by French law. He took the baguettes, slapped them round the face with it, and tried to serve them 3 cuts of uncooked ham. Only in such a way could variations and discrepancies in statements be detected. The truth remains the same, but lies, being artefacts of invention and memory, tend to vary in points of detail, since it's more difficult to recall the sum total of a contrived lie, than it is to remember a true and real experience. Consequently, on the 3rd of September, a month after the murder, Gustave Dominici was taken to the Forcalquier police station for questioning. He was the key witness. It was he who had found the bodies in the first instance and who had called in the police with the help of the motorcyclist. Why do it? Oh, was it the motorcyclist? Had the motorcyclist just seen this lad at the farm and gone, it's going to be that guy, let's fucking have that guy there? Sebille decided to go back to square one and cover the ground in more ruthless detail. For 2 days, Gustave was questioned unceasingly by a team of baguette-wielding detectives, and the pattern of questioning was repeated over and over again, and compared with his original statement, this long interrogation produced only 2 discrepancies. One concerned a minor matter of the precise path which he'd taken after finding the dead body of the child. This didn't seem particularly significant since the terrain was wild open country. And the other was an inadvertent admission by Gustave that he had actually noticed Lady Drummond's body under a rug shortly after finding the little girl's body, a fact which he hadn't mentioned previously. Either his memory was improving or his invention was crumbling, but there was still no evidence that would justify an arrest. Sebille retired, temporarily defeated but prepared to wait. He knew very well that with the passage of time lies decay more rapidly than the truth. Oh, right, he means no. I read that wrong. I put the emphasis on the wrong words. He knew very well that with the passage of time lies decay more rapidly than the truth. As in, lies decay more than the truth. I thought he was saying within the passage of time lies decay. There's the problem in it with reading someone else's writing. Maybe that's where we should have had a fucking comma. Another month went by. That's a very short sentence. Fucking hell. I took a big breath for that one. Another month went by, and it was now October, and the tourist season was coming to an end. Sabeel decided on a further bout of intensive interrogation. And why did we need to know the tourist season's coming to an end? Tourists are coming to come and stare at this fella and look at his weird family. And one more, Gustav, was taken to the police station for a 2-day session. And one more, Gustav was taken... Sabeel decided on a further bout of intensive interrogation, and one more, Gustav, was taken to the police station for a 2-day session of non-stop questioning. There's 2 Gustavs now. There was only one Gustav. It was Gustav, surely, and his son. No, he's Gaston. Gaston and Gustav. There's not 2 Gustavs. Weird. That's got to be maybe it's a misspelling or something. Weird, I don't know. Again, he managed to keep accurately to the details of original statements, but as before, under the stress of interrogation, he introduced a new admission which hadn't been mentioned previously. This time, he confessed that the little girl, who, remember, is a dead girl that someone could look at and go, she's not over 11. Elizabeth Drummond was her name, had actually been alive still when he'd first seen her lying on the ground. She'd moaned and moved one arm. He'd observed this, but nevertheless had done nothing at all to help her. He had let her die and had returned to the farmhouse. Now, at last, Sabeel was able to take some action within the framework of the law. He arrested Gustave on a charge under French law of failing to aid a person in danger. It was not a major indictment, but it was a step in the right direction, and Sabeel felt that a taste of prison might help loosen Gustave's tongue. The commissaire was still taking a long-term view. In due course, Gustave came up for trial. He was convicted and jailed for 2 months for watching a little girl die. That's mad, that. Just watching. If you want more of this, Ollie, just join the Patreon. Sorry, Patreon people. There's someone in the comments there. Jailed for 2 months. But during the course of the trial, various items of conflicting evidence were presented in court. In particular, questions of time. It seemed strange that Gustave claimed to have found the girl's body around 5:30 a.m. after dawn, when witnesses had heard shots fired at about 1:30. Yet Gustave had stated maybe they killed the parents at 1:30 in the morning. Maybe beat the girl, strangled the girl, or maybe the girl starved from 1:30 in the morning till 5:30 in the morning, or just froze, got too cold. It was summertime though, I think, wasn't it? Yet Gustave had stated previously that he'd gone out from the farmhouse after hearing the shots. Why the 4-hour time lapse? Well, they've said it's open fields, he could have got lost. Or if he had found the body after hearing the shots, why had he gone back to the farm to await dawn before taking any action? In case he gets shot, maybe? Gustave, if I heard gunshots in the night, I'm probably going to walk in the opposite direction of said gunshot, which would make sense for Gustave to do. He's already survived the war. He's trying to keep to himself. Gustave proved to be evasive on this issue, but on the evidence it looked as if he had in fact been callous enough to return to the farm after finding a dying girl, but was now ashamed and reluctant to admit it. Statements made by Gustave's wife and his brother, Clovis. Clovis is in now, what a name, Clovis. Confirmed that Gustave had said that the girl had not actually been dead when he found her, but he'd been afraid to tell the police the truth in case it caused trouble. But trouble for whom? Sabeel was convinced that Gustave was covering up for someone else, and that he was prepared to go to jail rather than reveal what he knew, and of course, off to jail he went. That was written like it was in a little children's story, wasn't it? And of course, off to jail he went. That was the end of the case for a year. Even the newspapers forgot about it, but Commissaire Sabeel did not. He stayed up relentlessly night after night, sweating, waking up, clutching at his wife, going, "There's a dead kid!" There were too many loose ends to satisfy his methodical mind, and so far he was concerned with the imprisonment of Gustave on a minor charge was irrelevant to the main issue. He pursued his inquiries with patient single-mindedness. He called regularly on the Dominici family to ask more and more questions, but always meeting the same sullen barrier of indifference and non-communication. In the long run, it was Gustave again, after he'd served his sentence and been released from prison, who in his characteristic way added new fragments of information to the ever-changing story. He doesn't fucking learn his lesson, does he? You shouldn't speak to him. Just be like, I've got nothing else to say, I've served the sentence, fuck off me farm. Questioned by Sabile on one occasion, he said that on the evening before the murders, 11-year-old Elizabeth had called at the farm to fill a kettle with water. He also admitted in a confused way that at some time during the fatal night he had, after finding the girl's dead body and returning to the farm, made a second visit to the Drummond camp and had even examined the woman's body to see if she was still alive. To Sabile, it was clear that Gustave was the weak link in the Dominici chain, and that sooner or later he would break down under rigorous questioning, so he pursued the interrogation in a stubborn, unrelenting way, and in the end, his judgment proved to be right. Gustave, unable to stand the strain any longer, and not able clearly to remember what he had said and what he had not said, accused his aged father, Gaston, of the triple murder. It was Gaston, he declared, who had shot the man and the woman, and he clubbed the little girl to death. Just fucking took her out for the night, mate. She couldn't hack it though because she wasn't even 11 yet. A couple fucking, she just had one pill and she was fucking lost, mate, just ruined it. Where are we up to? He, Gustave, and most of the family were well aware of the truth and had tried to cover up for the old man, but there had to be a limit. So far as Gustave was concerned, he'd already served the jail sentence on behalf of his dad, and he wasn't prepared to make any further sacrifices. It was now Sabile's turn to tighten the screw on Gaston himself. He was a sly, cynical, taciturn old man in his late 70s, a kind of homespun rural philosopher with a cruel, aggressive streak which made him a tyrant amongst his own family, with whom he enjoyed a kind of love-hate relationship. He might have had the knuckles tattooed, didn't he? I've always thought if you're going to have them, you want it to be ink that leaks in it, so you can stamp people with the with the punch people that you love with one hand. You like love, I remember I like you, in case you have a brain injury in it, but then slap the ones with hate that you don't like. Sabile went to the farmhouse and talked to Gaston over a bowl of soup. Gustave, he said, had finally told the whole story, and Gaston might well as have to just speak the truth. Surprisingly, Gaston very quickly confessed. It was as though the betrayal by his son had completely shattered his defiance. The confession, which was later produced at the trial, said, "It was a crime of love. I watched the woman camper for about 20 minutes, and I crept close and I whispered to her. Then the Englishman rose and jumped up." No, wait. This is weird. I thought that was... Fuck it, let's go with that. I'll read it how I was going to read it, because I'm obviously wrong, but then I'll read it properly. "It was a crime of love. I watched the woman camper for about 20 minutes, then I crept closer and I whispered to her. Then the Englishman rose and jumped on me. I picked up the carbine from the floor and I went crazy and shot at him. He ran away and I shot him twice more. The Englishwoman was screaming, so I turned around and shot her once." Which would be a crazy thing to whisper. Obviously that's not... It's the wrong use of grammar again. So he's used grammar there to make it seem like that's what was whispered. But obviously that's just more of the quote. Then the girl ran out from the car, and I ran after her and gave her a blow on the head with the butt of the gun. The case again became headline news throughout the world, but Gaston, having made his confession, withdrew it with equal facility and denied everything. At the same time, to make Sabile's task more difficult, Gustave also withdrew his allegations against Gaston. The rest of the family played safe and said nothing at all. Nevertheless, Sabile felt there was sufficient evidence to proceed with the case. Gaston Dominici was arrested and charged with murder and brought to trial in November 1954. So he killed the guy because the guy saw him perving on his wife who was camping on his farm. In a way though, if you're going to go and camp on someone else's land, on someone else's farm, I think they've got a right to watch you get dressed, at least, haven't they, really? At most, they can watch you from a distance, get dressed. Be like, oh yeah, sleeping on my land, are you? Not paying me? Have a look at them tits, mate. Let me see those fucking nipples, mate. Do you know what I mean? Show us your ring. Do you get what I mean? It makes sense, innit, in a way. That's what Glastonbury's all about, mate. Maybe the people that run these festivals don't charge for the field and they just put loads of cameras in bird boxes and trees. As was to be expected, he revoked all confessions, claiming that they'd been forced out of him under duress. He proclaimed his innocence very positively, but under examination went so far to admit that it was an accident. They attacked me. They took me for a marauder. They thought I was marauding. I was only pervy. I was only trying to sexually harass the woman, I wasn't trying to hurt or rob her. The only possible witnesses were members of his own family, but under French law, they're not required to give evidence on oath. The testimony of some of them proved to be so conflicting and so full of contradictions and denials that it was of little value. Gaston accused them, and they in turn accused him and each other. At one point, in a bitter tirade against his relatives, he said he loved his dog more than all my family. Sabille, in court, described the key members of the Dominici family in this way. Gaston, head of the family, hard, severe, without heart, brutal. Marie, Gaston's wife, a good woman, bowing to the authority of a tyrannical husband. Gustave, a liar, but he had the key to the mystery. Yvette, Gustave's wife, a dominant woman with her husband under her thumb. The most puzzling factor in the case was the lack of an adequate motive. The Drummonds had been murdered for neither robbery nor rape. The elusive hint of some obscure marquis intrigue was discounted. Again, not knowing what marquis is. Gaston was convicted of murder and sentenced to death, but because of his old age and infirm health, he was transferred from the death cell to a prison hospital in Marseille. The French government considered the case so important and controversial that an official inquiry was instigated. The Sûreté Nationale, after a long investigation, prepared a detailed report of over 250,000 words, without reaching a positive conclusion. The end of the affair was undramatic. After languishing in the prison hospital until the age of 81, Gaston was reprieved, and life imprisonment was substituted for the death penalty. He spent the remaining few years of his life behind bars. That's it, that's the end of that one. Which comes to a bit of an ending, I suppose. Less of a mystery, definitely a weird crime though. That was back to form there, it was a good one to pick to do the video with. It did feel like an actual weird crime. The guy just killed a family of 3 for no reason. The next one's called The Fantasia Fantasy. It's chapter 23. So that one must have been chapter 22, not 21. In the picture there's a piano, I presume a dead lady bleeding from the head, a chair, a fireplace and a broken piano stool. But we'll pick up with that probably next week, so I'll see you then. And if you've enjoyed that, if you like that on YouTube, you can join me Patreon for free for 7 days and listen to some of them now. Or you can pay me £3 and join the Patreon and hear all the other 21 other chapters of this book, plus 270 something bonus podcasts and other series of podcasts that are only available there. Discount codes for the website and that. Everybody's just left. If you're watching this later, you're thinking, oh, did people watch till the end? No, they didn't. Everybody's literally just left when I've said join my Patreon. They fucked right off. Let's have a look at what the comments say. Do we have any comments? Someone's moaning about the setup of the microphone, saying I've got an expensive microphone. The microphone was about 20 quid and I'm streaming through a tablet, not the microphone. The microphone's going into the podcast version of this, into the audio version. Yeah, fucking that's it really. Someone's threshold moment, you must be a yank. Buzzing. Yes, Ollie. That'll do. I'm glad you like the format though, man. There's more